What's going on, everyone? Welcome to ThursdAI for January 8th. This is Alex Volkov putting the headphones on and saying welcome to the new year for the first time since we stopped doing live streaming last year. We did have some episodes on the podcast. So if you're listening on the podcast, you haven't missed a beat. But for those of you who are very excited to be back with my co-host, welcome Ryan, welcome Wolfram. How are you guys doing?
Good to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Everybody's
Super
here.
pumped.
Yeah, it's going to be a
Super
great show.
excited.
It's going to be a great show. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you everybody who tunes in everywhere. We're streaming live on X, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. This has been, as always, a great week in AI news. And as always, what recently happens to me is that I start following the news, and then coming up to Wednesday, I was like, I'm not sure if we have a full show full of news. And then as I start the recap, I am again faced with the fact that there's just so much happening in the world of AI, just so much that even if we want to go dive deep into a rabbit hole and talk about something specific, like I really want to talk about Claude's agentic skills, which is not only in Claude anymore, we may have just a bunch of news to talk about. Now, with us, one of us became very famous during the last week as well. And so we absolutely must tell you that we're going to talk about Ralph. Ralph Wiggum is the new hot thing on the timelines this week, maybe last week, apparently started in like July, but nobody noticed super quick. So if you have any idea what I'm talking about, that's great. You know that Ryan blew up this week with his article. If you have no idea what Ralph Wiggum is, stay tuned with us. Ryan, I'm going to treat you as a host for the first segment of the show and then as a guest for the second segment. Yeah. We also have another guest with us. I will point to this other guest right here. Boom. I received my Richie Mini. So for those of you who have no idea what this robot is, this is the Hugging Face / Le Robot Richie Mini. And this little guy has been just on stage at CES with Jensen, and NVIDIA and Hugging Face are doing a collaboration. You can install a bunch of AI stuff on it. Hey, Richie, what's up? I say hi to the folks. Richie's waking up and saying hi. And you can order it, either the connected version or the wireless version, and you can program it and you can build it. You get a kit. You don't get a assembled robot, and you connect it. And it's adorable and super cute. And you can do all kinds of stuff with it. You can make it dance. You can connect AI to it. You can connect it to AI agents. I think, Wolfram, you did this as well. So folks, say hi to Richie. Richie, say hi back to the folks for the new year. Richie is going to be a permanent guest on the top right of my shoulder, kind of like a pirate and his parrot. I also have the Weights and Biases B here, so small upgrades for the new year. As we say also hello. All right, Richie is going to be in the background. Probably you'll see him kind of like dance. There's only place for one yepper in this household. But we want to welcome LDJ as well to the show. Folks, Happy New Year. How's it going? Ryan, let's start with you because you have excitement happening for the new year. I would love to hear how you're feeling being so famous on the internet.
So, yeah, I posted an article on X and the algorithm was kind to me. I think I was just building stuff and using a tool that everybody was talking about. And I was like, hey, I'm going to write an article about that. And I guess everybody liked it. So 1.1 million views later.
Wow, incredible. And the article was...
My friend Jeff Huntley created Ralph, and we'll talk more about it, but he created Ralph a while ago and it kind of blew up again. I thought I would try it. And like any good content creator, I was like, I'll create a little tutorial on how to do this. And again, the algorithm gods were kind to me. So here I am. And now I'm like literally shipping. I shipped 3 features today with Ralph, like concurrently.
Is Ralph running in the background?
Yeah, like right now.
That's awesome. Folks who, again, are not familiar with Ralph, this is kind of a technique to do code better. Robot. We'll talk about this. I have no idea. I do have an idea that at some point the algorithm decided that Ralph is the hottest shit in the world, and so everybody was like just talking about Ralph throughout the holidays. I think also Claude Code got really, really hot in the algorithm. Like there were days that most of my timeline, not the following timeline, the For You timeline that Grok completely controls, was 100% Claude Code. It was quite ridiculous. People were finding it out during the holidays. We have a few new folks here, sometimes tuning in. Claude Code is the side project in Anthropic that is a command line interface to use Claude for coding, and that side project became a $1 billion business on its own, I believe, like at least 1 billion. During the holidays, Boris Cherny also joined both Twitter and Threads. You guys remember Threads exists, the Twitter of Meta? And on both of them, he went super viral saying, hey, I'm the creator of Cloud Code. Ask me anything, whatever. That was cool. So we're going to mention some Cloud Code stuff. Wolfram, the holidays, the break and everything. How's the holidays for you? How you doing? What's new in your world?
Well, the holidays were great, and now I'm excited. This year has been a special year, as some people may have noticed already. If you look down here, you are not the only AI evangelist at Weights and Biases anymore. So I joined the team, as we announced in the last show in December. And yeah, I'm still going through onboarding and getting ready to rock. But my first impression is excellent, and I'm really looking forward what we can achieve together.
So this was not a loaded question. I did literally ask Wolfram about holidays and stuff and the things that he built. But yes, Wolfram is officially part of Weights and Biases, part of the evangelism team here on Weights and Biases. We'll be focusing on eval, so we're going to bring you a bunch of that goodness here on the show as well. So I think that this is going to be super, super exciting. And we have LDJ also over here. LDJ, how are you doing? What's new? What's super exciting for you in the AI world? How did you celebrate New Year's? Did you build anything cool? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. Great holidays, great last few months of last year. And what I'm really excited about and thinking a lot about recently is the new Vera Rubin GPUs, which we knew they were coming a while back, but they were expected to not really be announced to be in production until later. And they seem to pretty much be here early. It was literally just 4 months ago that B300 was announced to be in full production. Now Vera Rubin is announced in full production. Obviously, we'll go more into details later, but that's what I'm excited about.
Vera Rubin is the new line of complete computers from NVIDIA that were announced during
Server
CES.
GPUs. Yep.
Server GPUs, and I think there's CPUs in there as well. There's a bunch of stuff. We're going to cover all of the CES NVIDIA announcements very soon. I think this is one of the biggest news. Apparently, some folks are already running on this. So Runway 4.5 is already running on the new NVIDIA hotness. And definitely we've seen some changes in the market based on updates like this. So we're going to cover this. LDJ, thanks for propping this up. And I think that it's time for quick TLDR. Quick TLDR is where we basically run through everything that we have as far as news for this week. We were maybe expecting a Chinese Christmas surprise, but I think besides GLM 4.7, nothing major was released. As far as I saw, Qwen Edit was released a little bit. We're going to mention this as well, but generally fairly quiet holidays, which is great for us because we wanted to be on the holiday. Just a quick reminder though, we did release the end of the year recap where we went month by month of every AI release from this year. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, that's on the podcast. And also on January 1st, I posted an interview with Will Brown, ML researcher with Prime Intellect. And that episode is great. I recorded that during AI Engineer. Will is a great dude. It's really, really fun to talk to him in person. And so I posted that and really hope you have some time to check that out because I think that's a great interview. And with this, I think time for TLDR. And as always, a reminder, we're a very breaking news pro show. So if something happens as breaking news during the show, please tell us in comments. We love to see breaking news. We love to discuss breaking news as they go live. This is how the show started nearly 3 years ago. Can you guys believe it? In March. So if you have any breaking news, definitely send us. And we are going into TLDR. Let's go. Welcome to the TLDR for Thursday. This is the segment where we talk about everything that happened during this week, super quick, so that you'll be up to date. And if you decide to stay and dive in with us, you're more than welcome for the rest of the show. This week, there's a bunch of stuff happening. So in open source, we have Solar Open. It's 102 billion parameter MOE from Upstage, a Korean lab, focusing on data training and strong benchmarks. We also have a newcomer to the open source, MiroThinker 1.5. It's 30 billion parameter open source search agents that beats trillion parameter models on browser comp and via interactive scaling. Our friends from Liquid AI released LFM 2.5, Liquid Foundation Models 2.5, a family of 5 tiny, around 1 billion parameter on-device foundational models with text, vision, audio, and Japanese support. They announced it on CES, I believe, together with AMD, Lisa Su, I think, on stage. Liquid is great, and shout out to Liquid, they're great friends of ours. Another set of friends, great friends. We've been tracking their work since the beginning of ThursdAI, pretty much. News Research released News Coder. It's a 14 billion parameter open source competitive programming model that achieved a 7% jump on live code bench accuracy in 4 days of RL training. RL stands for reinforcement learning. And for the new year, I will remind some folks about some terms that we use often to be welcoming to new folks to the show. XAI, FKA Jipu AI, they became the world's first major LLM company to IPO, raising $558 million. The folks who make GLM, and they made GLM 4.7, which is probably the top coding AI in the world of open source right now. This is it currently that I have for open source. Let's skip to the next big category of news here on ThursdAI, which is big companies and their LLMs and APIs. The one thing I would love to talk about on the show is that Grok is in trouble again because everybody started adding bikini to everything, which sounds funny when you do it to Maduro getting captured, or Elon Musk does it to himself. But when people do this without consent to women or even minors, this is really, really bad, especially as a product. This happened and Grok was in trouble again. We talked about Grok being in trouble before. As XAI announces the biggest raise, I think they have so far, Series E, they raised another $20 billion at a $230 billion valuation, which is bonkers. And there's a lot of GPUs coming to Grok. Amazon, meanwhile, launches Alexa Plus on the web and expanding its AI assistant beyond the Echo devices. You can go into Amazon.com and actually use the smart Alexa on the web. I think it's free for Prime members as well. And if you're not a Prime member, you can pay for it if you want to. I don't know why you would. TLDR, going back on track. NVIDIA announces Vera Rubin platform at CES 2026 and generally announced a bunch of other stuff. Vera Rubin, 6 new chips delivering 5x inference performance over Blackwell. Absolutely bonkers. LDJ would love to chat with you about this. Meanwhile, OpenAI was fairly quiet this week. The main thing OpenAI launched was GPT Health, a privacy-first space for personalized health conversations with connected electronic health records and fitness apps, including Apple Fitness. That is a waitlist. So get excited, but not too excited. So OpenAI launched a waitlist, and we'll see how fast this waitlist will open up. While on the health news, this is a new thing. Doctronic launches their first US pilot allowing AI to autonomously prescribe medication without physician oversight. We've been waiting for this. It's a pilot. It's somewhere in one state somewhere, but it's coming, folks. It's coming. AI doctors are almost here. And I will just mention that, speaking of AI doctors, a person who worked on, I think maybe the first AI doctor in existence is also with us. Nisten, welcome to the show. Happy New Year. We're in the middle of TLDR, but I wanted you to say hi to the folks.
Yeah, happy New Year, everybody. I have a cold, so I could use that AI doctor right now.
I thought that was just sexiness, Nisten.
I thought this is just your new mic that you got yourself for Christmas.
No, I'm sick.
I was told, though, when I'm sick, I sound better on the podcast, man. So hopefully get some tea, stay with us. You have some work to do today, my friend, because of the new GPUs. You and LDJ could potentially go deep if you have the power for it. All right, going back to TLDR super quick. So Doctronic, first AI pilot, and Google. This is new from today, folks. Breaking news. I really want to hit that button for the first time this year. AI breaking news coming at you only on Thursday. The breaking news from today in the TLDR segment, folks, is that Google brings Gmail into the Gemini era with AI overviews, smart replies, and AI inbox for 3 billion Gmail users. That's right, Gemini 3 is powering a bunch of features inside Gmail for the first time. We all use Gmail. It hasn't updated since forever, and I'm very, very excited to test that out. Probably not live on the show because I don't want you reading my emails, but we'll definitely tell you about this as much as possible. All right. So the next segment of the show, after we discuss all these things, is going to be vision and video. And so in video, there's two things that we may discuss. Just one of them. LTX2 is finally open source. We told you about LTX2 back when it was released back in October. They announced it's going to be open source, and it's finally open source. You can run this. It's a first truly open audio and video generation model with full training code for consumer GPUs. You can fine-tune LTX2 on your stuff, and it's like Sora level almost. It can generate people who talk. And I think for open source, this is the first and the only maybe video model that also generates audio and does it well. So that's great. So we'll mention this if we have time. This is from KAIST, the Korea Institute for Technology. It's a framework, real-time interactive talking head avatars with 500 millisecond latency and 6.8 speed up on previous versions. Wolfram and I are very excited about those technologies specifically, and this one is real-time if they release the code. So we haven't been able to test, but the videos look really, really cool. The thing that I wanted to touch briefly, if we have time, is NVIDIA launches Nemotron Speech ASR. ASR stands for Automatic Speech Recognition. Nemotron Speech is kind of a fork of Parakeet or building on top of Parakeet. It's a 600 million open source streaming model with 24 millisecond median latency and up to 900 concurrent streams on an H100. This is sick. The sickest thing about this is that when they presented this, I heard a very familiar voice, a voice that was featured on Thursday, the voice of Quindla Kramer, our friend, as Daily, the company he runs, and one of the top people in real-time AI voice agents, was collaborating with NVIDIA on this. And so it's great to hear a friend on stage behind Jensen announcing this special new technology. Our guest of the interview is right here, Ryan Carson, who blew up with a new coding technique or a new approach to autonomous coding assistant orchestration, let's call it like this, which is called Ralph Wiggum, after Ralph Wiggum in Simpsons. And Ryan, who works on the AMP team, a great coding tool, is going to be with us talking about Ralph Wiggum and tell us all about this.
And I want to be clear, Jeff Huntley deserves all the credit for creating it. I just wrote an article about it and used it.
Shout out to Jeff Huntley, whose work is now featured, and everybody's all they can talk about is Ralph. Alrighty, folks, this was the TLDR. Hope I didn't miss anything. I'm excited about Gmail AI, but I think we can get started with open source. Nisten, you look like you have something to say.
Is my microphone okay? Just checking.
Yeah, you're coming through. Good. Coming through loud and clear. That's awesome. Alrighty, folks, super quick. Any big news that I have missed in the TLDR? And if not, we will move on. Also, asking the audience, folks who are tuning in, who are saying we're looking forward. Somebody said Cloud Code 2.1 as well, Milos. So thank you, Milos, for that. I think I saw Cloud Code 2.1. I also saw the Cloud Code stop working for a second. I will say this super quick, and I know this is maybe not my place, and we're not a political show at all, but what happens in Iran is heartbreaking from one point, but inspiring from the other point. So shout out to the folks in Iran for what they're going through. Very, very brave, and I'm really praying for everybody there to stay safe and hoping for some news. I'm saying this as the internet was shut off in Iran, hoping that everybody there is okay, basically. I just had to say this, and let's move on. Open source, folks. Open source, our favorite corner in ThursdAI. Let's do it. Open source AI, let's get it started. Alrighty, folks, open source AI. And I think we need to choose the top two things to talk about. I definitely want to talk about Solar first, and then we can chat about some other stuff as well. Solar from Upstage is the first release we're going to mention. Let me just pull up the notes here for you so that we can show you what everything is about. We talked about Upstage a while ago, and this is Solar Open, but Solar I think has been on the radar for a while now. Let's get the screen on, and then so we have Upstage releasing Solar. It's 102 billion parameter MOE with big data training and strong benchmarks. It's very interesting to talk about AI models in the open right now, because I remember we used to chase benchmarks a lot. And we're like, okay, this new model beats that previous model. This happens, but started to happen less frequently. If you guys can agree or not, I would love a discussion here as well. Many open source models release, and I started to notice a trend of maybe new models get released are specifically better at one thing or two things. Rarely do we see a model in the open source that comes and beats everything out there. That's usually now in the realm of big companies. And in that kind of like area, I would like to mention Solar Open. It's not a state-of-the-art model across everything, definitely not, but there's a few very interesting things about this. So 102 billion parameters with only 12 billion parameters actives per token, 129 experts, 128 routed, one shared, and the top 8 expert activation. MOE seem to be the hot thing across open source. The cool thing about this is the amount of training they did. So this model was trained on almost 20 trillion tokens, 19.7, with 4.5 of them are synthetic. As a brief reminder, I would love to invite LJ to like briefly give us a overview of why that matters and why the size of the training data set matters. LJ, you offer a brief refresh for the new year for folks of what the difference between tokens and parameters is and why the size of the thing matters. And maybe Nisten can help us with this. It looks like LDJ is having some technical issues. Nisten,
Sure.
19 trillion tokens, 19.7 trillion tokens is absolutely insane.
I mean, that sounds about right. These days, data sets for video or text end up being like in the 20 to 40 terabytes range. The way they count the tokens is, let's say, for example, the vocabulary is 128,000. Usually the vocabulary is like 120,000 or 150,000 tokens. And then you just do whatever that is to the power of 16. And then you can actually get the exact amount of data before it is compressed. But I would say these days that is becoming pretty standard. There is something to be said about what is synthetic and what is not. This gets very tricky because all the data does have a human source at the end of the day. And if you use an LLM, everyone uses an LLM to filter data. But if you just use the LLM to filter the data that's already there, can you say that's synthetic? Or maybe you just changed one or two things. But what if, for example, you just took the agentic data of a very skilled developer or a DevOps person, and then you built that up as an entire agentic data set? So now technically that is synthetic, but also you are using a lot of human data in there as well. So it is very hard to actually quantify if something is fully synthetic or not. It's all mixed now. The main thing you want to keep in mind is that you have to have a good distribution of data. So if you make it all LLM generated, you'll just end up with a lot of patterns, which hurt the model. So you'll just like instill very, very hard patterns, and then the model just keeps doing a lot of dashes or just saying absolutely right the whole time.
I think that's incredible. Thank you, Nisten, for the breakdown. LDJ, I think you're back with us. Anything you want to add, feel free. I will add specifically about Upstage. The biggest contribution here is their innovative data factory approach and difficulty-aware training curriculum, which has a dynamic curriculum of difficulty from 10% to 64.5% synthetic ratio across phases. So they play around with the ratio of how much of the data they're training on right now is synthetic. And like I said, synthetic data is usually data generated by other LLMs, but it's really hard to quantify if clear data is synthetic data as well. The other highlight there is they have a specific, particularly notable Korean language optimization, addressing critical gap where global open models underperform on non-English languages. That's also multi-linguality is big area where open source kind of like is doing some frontier. And so on the small Korean leaderboard, this model looks like it beats previous models. Korean AI.me is 80% plus on this model. So Upstage Korean Lab, shout out to them. We'll give you some more transparency about them if we can.
Yeah, to just add on a bit to what Nisten was saying, I think ultimately we could just call it synthetic data if it comes out at the end by the LM at all, because even even just when you're even chatting with ChatGPT, even that information ultimately came from humans somewhere along the way from when it was originally trained. So there's always some type of real world data that eventually got into the system to result in that. And this class of techniques of synthetic data really is just so many different ways of how you could use LLMs in combination with real world information like that. What's interesting too, though, which I feel like hasn't been mentioned, or maybe when my headset went out, maybe it was mentioned, but SnapPO, which is their reinforcement learning technique here. And in short, like you said here in your little summary, that you had up the image, the Gemini Flash image.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you mentioned 50% training speed up. And so that's going to be interesting, and those types of reinforcement learning frameworks are going to be helpful, because the more efficiently you could learn from information and the more you can improve the performance of the model. If you actually look at the benchmarks on the Hugging Face compared to GLM 4.5 Air, I believe it is, it's significantly above that in a lot of the benchmarks. And I think for this size of model, GLM was what people were using, and this seems to maybe be the new best one.
Yep. And I think one of the things that we get excited about in the open source contribution is that when these models release, we often appreciate some of the transparency, right? Sometimes we only get the weights, but in this case, we also got like a roadmap of how to use the data and how to use different reasoning traces to train this model better. They released a bunch of that stuff, including a full report. That's great. I want to shout out Ili Bakoc from Hugging Face, who was a guest on the show, and he did like a full technical deep dive. They have a technical report, a deep technical report. We'll link this to the show notes, so if you're interested in that. But generally, the thing that to highlight from these reports and these releases is sometimes these labs release their RL techniques, reinforcement learning techniques, the verify signature. They release a roadmap for how other labs in open source can build, and then we all benefit. So I think that's great, and it's commercially viable as well. So you can use this model, especially if you're if you need in some more better Korean, you can use this model. Alrighty, folks, we're gonna move on. I wanted to chat about Miro as that came over my kind of desk. I think Wolfram, you also saw MiroThinker as well. So let's bring this to the show super quick. I think it's a newcomer. I don't remember us talking about Miro at all. Would you like to chat about Miro?
Yeah, so Miro Mind AI has released MiroThinker 1.5, which is an open source search agent.
Yeah,
exactly. It has an agentic density new paradigm, basically, that is more important than the parameter count. So it's a 30B model, but it is achieving frontier performance on agentic search benchmarks, like we just saw above, where it got 56.1% on browser comp and 66.8% on browser comp Chinese. So it was outperforming trillion parameter models like Kimi K2, which only scored 60%. And the secret sauce is the interactive scaling, which is a third dimension of scaling, where agents form hypotheses, retrieve evidence via search tools, and detect conflicts to iteratively revise in real time using a time-sensitive sandbox to prevent hindsight bias. That is, I'm reading from the notes because, yeah, it's cheaper than the bigger models, and yeah, it's a new paradigm for search. So that is one of the instances where a fine-tuned specific model for a specific case can do a lot better than a big generic model if it's tuned for its particular situation.
Yeah. This is great. Thank you all for the coverage. Folks, any comments on MiroThinker, the interactive scaling? This, for me, highlights the importance of kind of like harnesses and agentic harnesses in 2026. We definitely know that raw intelligence from the models is very important, evals, etc. But Ryan, agentic labs and harnesses, they seem to be more and more important. This could be the year of agentic harnesses, because we saw that even with the raw intelligence, you can improve them significantly by doing some very clever tricks. If you have any comments on the harness part as one of the experts, feel free to join us.
I mean, the models are so good now that people might think, oh, you could just open ChatGPT or open, Claude and you can't. We're still a long way from each model being specifically useful for a specific task. So it just happens that coding is a pretty key task in the world. And so the coding harnesses like AMP or Claude Code or Cursor, Devin, all of the stuff are very important. The coding harnesses are the bleeding edge, right? And then there's a lot of us building businesses like what I'm building, where I'm building a harness for a different industry. It's not coding, but I'm using everything that I've learned from the coding harnesses. So watch all these spaces closely.
I think the highlight of harness use and why we would use them is because a smaller model with a great harness can beat significantly larger models and thus making it cheaper. And I think that we're all looking for how we're going to employ these models, the smaller one, the open source one, the MIT licensed ones. And I think harness is the answer. The few more notable things in MiroMind is Miroverse, open source training dataset with 147K samples supporting research agent training, which is great because many of us use these models for research. And then we also have, this is a fine tune of Qwen 3 thinking, which is great. Comments, folks, or we're going to move on to the next one?
Speaking of that dimension, I think it's interesting that it can handle up to 400 tool calls per task. So you have the size of the model, the parameter count, you have the context it can handle, you have thinking or non-thinking. And now there's also this dimension of how well that is about the harness, how well can it use the harness. And I think it goes both ways. A model trained for a specific harness will probably do much better in that. And at the same time, as better as the harness, the more it can use the model. So we have two ways to improve the models and the agents that way.
I just want to say it's very hard to make a good harness. It seems easy at first, but it's just like making a tool or a drill or something. It has to be basically perfect. You can't have many things to worry about for the tool that you're going to use the most. So it does seem kind of haphazard at first at how these tools are put together as command line interfaces, but to actually make it good, it's pretty hard. And things will get more interesting as we get to continual learning and the models start to self-train and self-adapt later. So it's quite a bit of a ways to go. But yeah, I just wanted to say it's hard. It's very hard to make a good harness. So
harnesses we talked about. Super quick run through the rest of the updates. You guys select if there's anything interesting that we want to mention there, as well as we have a lot of show to cover and some of these deserve a deeper dive through. We have other open source LLM announcements here. Let me just add them here super quick. So Liquid AI LFM 2.5, Liquid Foundation Models 2.5, family for 5 tiny on-device foundation models with text, vision, audio, and Japanese support at CES. Let's look at their performance super quick. Very impressive performance against smaller models. So this is a 1.2 billion parameter LFM 2.5 compared to Llama 3.2, which is a long time ago, a model from a long time ago, to Gemma 3 and Granite 1 billion. So basically all of the 1 billion-ish parameter models on IF bench and if eval, instruction following bench, instruction following eval, this small model gets a significant boost. AI.me 2025, this model gets 14%. Again, for a 1 billion parameter model, this is very impressive. And 38% of GPQA. So we know that Liquid does incredible stuff. The most important thing in this is, I think, speed. Okay, so Liquid always releases super cool stuff because of their infrastructure and specific architecture. They specifically have 239 tokens per second on an AMD CPU. And this Liquid Foundation model were announced together with Lisa Su and AMD on stage. 82 tokens per second on a Snapdragon Gen 4 neural processing unit. So these models are basically built to run on devices, on toasters, on iPhones. iPhone 16 Pro Max with 100 tokens per second. Now, again, these models, you will likely be very surprised, if not a little bit disappointed if you are comparing this to the latest thinking GPT 5.2 Pro Max, right? So like, do not expect the same level of performance, but for many use cases such as quick translation, summarization, potentially summarization is a great use case for smaller models and autocorrect and different things. Smaller models absolutely rule, and to run them on device, it makes no sense to go and burn tokens on a GPU somewhere for a big model because you can do so much with smaller models. What else can we talk about these models? The vision language one, you would be surprised how well the small vision models perform for smaller tasks, for saying, identify this. I'll give you a straight up example of why small models are needed. The Richie Mini right here, the little robot that I have that we presented at the beginning of the show, has limited capacity, has a Raspberry Pi on there with limited capacity. bigger models, 30 billion parameter models cannot run on this. So something like a liquid foundational LFM 2.5 can potentially run on device. And the vision model means that connected with the eyes that it has, it can detect and run some stuff on very small footprint, which is very important. And LFM 2.5 is very memory efficient. So actually now talking about this, I'm very excited to try and shove, LFM model into this little guy and see if you can put like a little brain in the thing.
That does make it for them like the best sub 2B model right now, the best on device model. Yeah, I was hoping we'd see more specialization for smaller models for on device stuff, but we're not seeing it quite yet. I think with new hardware and stuff that comes out, we're going to see more specialization for the small ones, because this is the one thing where it would make sense to continue pre-training it or fine-tuning it for the task.
And I think fine-tuning, let me mention super quick again, new year, we're going to mention some of the stuff. Fine-tuning is the practice of taking a base model that the company releases and aligning this to your task based on your data. So fine-tuning is something we've been following on ThursdAI for a while. Fine-tuning is also some area that weights and biases is great at, because everything that you fine-tune, you can track with weights and biases models. So that's great. But besides this, fine-tuning is absolutely crucial for smaller models. This has been kind of the hype of Neuro IPS last year, where base open source models were fine-tuned for specific purposes. Sometimes folks who are building harnesses are getting the results of those harnesses fine-tuned back into a model. So we saw Cursor with WindService Composer, Cursor 1. So basically, they took open source models and fine-tuned them for the purposes based on the harness results on top models as well. DJ, you have a comment on LFM as well?
Yeah, the LFM 2.5 audio, the 1.5B one. So I think that's really impressive because there's a lot of new unified audio models, I guess you can call it, that are usually able to do audio and language and able to take in audio as just a native input without needing to first process it through a dedicated audio transcription model. Then also able to output audio itself without needing to send it to a dedicated text-to-speech model.
Mm-hmm.
And so LFM 2.5 audio, it's able to do both those things for input and output. And just if you'd like to, I just sent a short video that kind of gives a little demo of how high quality it sounds.
Yes, we should absolutely do this.
And I believe Maxime Labone.
Oh, Maxime is a great friend of the pod person. He works at LFM, and he posted. Let's see if I can bring this up here, and then let me zoom in and see. And you guys let me know if sound comes through.
Yeah, sure. Well, while you're doing that, what's really impressive about this too is since it's only 1.5 billion parameters, which is what the 1.5B stands for, that means you can run it while having very little RAM on your device. So most people have, 8 gigabytes of RAM, or even many phones these days have around 8 gigabytes or some, and it'll be able to run on just that amount.
Let's take a look.
What is this obsession people have with books?
So I think here he's just using it as a TTS model, but you could also use it as like a model to have a conversation with. And so here, so he just said, "Can you hear me?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, here, because maybe he's using a different mic there.
2 + 3 = 5.
Oh, so interleaved mode, I think, is very interesting, where it's not only audio. So this model can take text and audio as well. And I think that this is like interleaved mode support. This is a video from Maxime on LFM Audio, and he's like bullish on things. This runs locally on a CP with llama.cpp, real-time text-to-speech and ASR. Usually way bigger models than this. Real-time text-to-speech and ASR is kind of the both sides of what you need in an agentic voice conversation, right? You have text-to-speech that turns into speech. Then in the middle, you have an LLM, and then speech generation on the other side. Speech to text, and then text-to-speech. All right, folks, this has been LFM. Any other comments? No, we're going to move on.
Very good. These small models are used all the time. So the speech stuff and the speech recognition all the time. Like Kokoro, everything uses. They get embedded in websites too. All right.
So I think the thing about audio specifically is, I have it in my notes, it's a 8 times faster audio detokenizer on mobile CPUs without the pipeline of ASR, LLM, TTS, the pipeline that I mentioned. So this model can do all of it, which is great. Although, again, listening to Quinla Kramer, CEO of Daily, and the maintainer of PipeCat, the 3 pipeline setup for agentic voice conversations is still the GOAT, because you want to replace the middle one with a high intelligence. So while this is great, the folks still need to get the most latency with a 3 ASR, automatic speech recognition, LLM in the middle, and then TTS, text to speech, on the other side. All right, let's move on to mentioning the last two things. The super quick thing I wanted to shout out, XAI has gone public, and shout out to them because, first of all, I think, folks, maybe you agree with me, it's great to see great open source companies go public and receive a good reception. I think they went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange with a ticker of 02513. But yeah, XAI raised $500 million at 37 million shares, and great revenue growth as well. Shout out to them. Rapid, under radar execution, continuous delivery is the community reaction there.
This is not financial advice, but if you are on that exchange, do not confuse the other XAI listing, which is like a medical medtech company in Hong Kong. That's a completely different one.
XAI, of course, thanks to XAI, of course, is the maker of the GLM series of open source models, which we absolutely love. GLM 4.6 was released 2 weeks ago. 4.7 is crushing it on code and open source coding, and you can plug it into Cloud Code. Yep. All right, so this is at the end of the open source. We will shout out our friends from News Research releasing News Coder 14B, open source competitive programming model, achieved 7% jump on Live Code Bench in just 4 days of RL training. Let me just shout them out. Great friends of the pod, News Research doing incredible stuff. Tested production C++, perfectly debugged code, found race conditions and memory leaks, said Fad Mirza. In 4 days, they used 48 NVIDIA B200 GPUs to 24,000 verifiable problems in RL, reinforcement learning. Verifiable is the big thing. You will train on something and you need responses to get generated from the model, and then you will choose the best response. How do you know is the best response? That's where the verifying comes through. And this is why, and Ryan mentioned this before, on problems that are scoped in domain, like coding, like math, where you can confirm, you can run the code and see if it compiles, for example, or you can run a linter and see if the linter passes, or you can see if the program executes well. That's verifiable, so you can run some sort of fire to make sure that your model does correct. And so RL does very, very good fine-tuning for models such as this. So this is a open Apache 2 models, full training code, and benchmark harness. And I will shout out specifically the fact that these folks, they also released the weights and biases link. So if you go and we go to their blog, I'll show you their blog, News Coder 14B, and you can see the model links, the code on GitHub for Atropos, and the 1B link. And you go to 1B link, you have this beautiful shout out to Weights and Biases. That's the only sponsor for the show, by the way. You have this beautiful, not even a Weights and Biases like report dashboard. This is a Weights and Biases report that they built. So they created this report. Reports are kind of like our blogging system where you can put live like dashboards of everything that happens as live or after the run. So you can see these beautiful traces, beautiful plots of comparison to Quen and a bunch of other stuff. So shout out to News Research for this effort and the great coder that they have, 14B coder. I think it's time for us to move on to bigger companies and APIs, because I think there's a lot to talk about there as well. So for folks who just joined us, welcome to ThursdAI, January 8th of 2026. Can you guys believe 2026? Insane. We started in 2023 and now it's 2026.
Just imagine what the world's going to be like at the end of this year. I just can't wait to have that show.
I have a robot, and I saw on stage, we're going to mention CES right now. I saw on stage NVIDIA and then examples that Richie Mini, the robot that I have here, it's just the head encapsulated in like a small body, but the body doesn't move, obviously. There is supposedly like a humanoid body that's going to connect to this head at some point. It kind of looks ridiculous, but there's like a buff thing with a small Richie face, and it's really, really funny. And obviously, Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, the biggest company in the world by market share, maybe one of the more important companies in the world by what they do, also came out, and he had, I think Jensen is cheating a little bit, because he had these great keynotes, but now he has these like beautiful Disney Star Wars robots like on stage with him, and they just like makes everything he says like super, super cute. So like they just like, they react to everything he says, and he has like interactive robots on stage. Obviously, NVIDIA leans very heavily into robotics as well. So I think that's where we start. We're going to start with NVIDIA and CES and Vera Rubin, which is their new kind of platform. I'll share this on screen. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah. So Vera Rubin's very exciting. This is the next generation of their AI-focused GPUs, or at this point, GPUs may be a misnomer. Maybe it's more appropriate to call it AI processors.
They call this a computer. Trying to simplify this down to we're building computers. This is like the next computer. Unlike the computers that we have at home or at work, these are racks, huge racks like of computers like stand together. Sorry, go ahead. I should have to.
So Vera Rubin is the next generation. The most recent generation being called Blackwell. Generation before that being called Hopper. Some people might have heard news about China getting access to some GPUs. That's still in the Hopper generation. And so this is 2 generations ahead of that now. And it's exciting because this is, even from what I've seen, like basically in every metric, it's a bigger jump compared to Blackwell than Blackwell was from the past generation. Improvements are slowing, energy efficiency, like these improvements are plateauing. And it seems like it's almost feeling like an acceleration. And this is actually more than I thought it would be.
All right.
So this isn't an image actually I made, this is like months ago, and then I updated it with the most recent info. Actually, you could ignore the Rubin Ultra part at the bottom. Is we might not, it's more of like estimated values for the Rubin Ultra,
okay.
But for everything else. So here we could see petaflops. This is just how many operations per second it can do. FP4 and FP8, these are just different accuracies that it could do those operations. But we could just see from, if you go from Hopper to the B200, it's like, that was like about 5x. And then when we go from there's multiple configurations here. Sorry, it might be a bit confusing. But yeah, if we just look at FP8.
Okay, let's look at FP8.
Yeah, so it's about a double to B200. And then there's some small improvements when you go to like B300.
Explain what, like it's a precision of a model basically, and we're talking about the amount of calculations this GPU or computer can run on models at FP8 precision.
In a simplified way, you could think of it as 8 bits of information, but it's how much accuracy of information is within that operation that the computer is doing.
Great. FP is floating point 8 and PF is petaflops.
Yes, correct. And so it's able to do here for B200, for example, if we look GB200 config, about 5 petaflops, and that's 5, I think it's quadrillion. I think peta is quadrillion. So about 5 quadrillion operations per second at this accuracy. B300, it was more of like there's like some bandwidth improvements, I think, or some other things, but it's not that much gain. Then, but with Vera Rubin, we have this huge over 3x gain here.
Wow.
And it's projected to be even larger for the next version. But here, if you look at the power being used here, it's not that much more. The estimated power, I think, like some of the estimates are like, some say it's closer to 1800 watts, but even then, it's not that much more than Blackwell, while being significantly greater bandwidth as well. If you see 13 terabytes per second, that's very important for all the GPUs communicating to each other during the training process, because
it's 3 times faster while only adding another 200 watts.
But like a little over 3 times faster.
More than 3 times.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Really exciting. And keep in mind, the B300, that was only announced to be in full production just 4 months ago. And January 6th at CES, Jensen announced that Vera Rubin is now in full production.
Vera Rubin is in full production, including companies that switched to Vera Rubin, like Runway, I believe.
Yeah, there's some debate on what he exactly means by full production, but that was the exact words, full production.
So let's run to the kind of the platform, the Vera Rubin platform, 6 chip array, super quick, as we have this. Look at this beautiful infographic that we have here with the GPUs. Rubin is the GPUs, 50 petaflops of AI inference, 5x of the time. Vera is the CPU that adds to the GPU, 88 Olympus ARM cores. NVLink is the interconnect bandwidth processor, which is very important because between all the GPUs that are distributed in the data center, you have to have a lot of communication, high bandwidth communication, because the models are bigger and bigger and bigger, and each GPU works on a smaller chunk of the training process. They have to continuously communicate. So NVLink is a big NVIDIA Plus, and NVLink 6 is 3.6 terabytes of interconnect bandwidth. And then they have ConnectX 9 supersonic Ethernet chip and the Bluefield DPU KV cache reuse. KV cache is very important for, I believe, inference as well. So a lot of the model weights are stored on KV cache while you run inference. And then you have another Spectrum 6 Ethernet with power efficiency. This is a whole rack, basically, system that they launch. This is the platform. And now this can run on one thing, and then they have a rack system. Basically, they ship. They don't ship just like one pizza type computer. They ship like whole rack. 72 GPUs plus 36 CPUs with a total of 20.7 terabytes of memory and 2.5 exaflops of training capacity. 100% liquid cooled, cable free. It's just absolutely amazing, the type of like computers that they're shipping. And we will see basically the economic impact of this based on this chart is 75% fewer GPUs for a 10 trillion parameter mixture of experts training. 75% fewer GPUs, 10x cheaper inference. 1 million to 10 million tokens per second at the same power. So I think Nisten mentioned this. LDJ will get to you in a second. Nisten mentioned the power requirements, folks. This is like a big thing. Most of the world is looking for where to plug these GPUs or where the power is going to come from. So while we also see improvement in performance, the most important thing is to keep the power hungriness at the same level or even reduce power. And I think that the fact that they're doing both is beating Moore's law by a significant amount. LDJ, go ahead.
I was going to add to that a 75% figure you're saying. So when it comes to a real world use case, to maybe help people better contextualize this, Jensen mentioned that if you were to take the DeepSeek model and scale it to 10 trillion parameters, which in other words means scaling the amount of connections in that neural network to 10 trillion, then you end up having, when you compare it to the last generation of GPUs, with the same amount of GPUs, it's able to end up training that to 100 trillion tokens, or about 100 trillion words of information in a fourth of the time. So about 4 times faster. It seems like there's truly this real world gain of about 4x, which is pretty big.
I just want to say, as someone that spent a bit of time at Intel and had a good time there, just how mind-blowing this stuff is. What NVIDIA is doing is truly astonishing. There's actually a really good MKBHD video that came out recently where he's shrunk himself down to show how amazing silicon really is. And it is mind-blowing, y'all. Like what is happening here, and the fact they're still pushing is amazing. The second thing I'll say is I think it's hilarious when people say there's an AI bubble. It's hilarious because Jensen over and over again says the need for inference is unbelievable and it's only going to go up exponentially. And we all see this. Like, I can't get enough inference. I want to spin up 10 Ralphs now. We need more inference. So it's exciting to see what they're doing here. And they bought Groq.
Yes. So in addition to all this, NVIDIA entered in an exclusive license, non-exclusive licensing deal, but also taking most of the people from Grok with a Q for, I believe, $20 billion. So NVIDIA is definitely investing on the inference side as well. Grok chips, we talked about this, the founder of Grok and the founder-CEO, Jonathan, he was instrumental, if not the lead person to lead the TPU creation at Google. Google has their own chips. They don't use NVIDIA chips. TPUs, they're really like efficient at scale. Jonathan Ross was instrumental, if not the top guy creating TPUs, and then opened Grok, and Grok had specific inference fast chips. We talked about Grok, and they're not that good for training, or at least they're not better for training than the NVIDIA chips, but they're really, really fast for inference. Inference is a huge thing. The amount of the harnesses we talk about, the AI use case we talk about, all of this is inference. This is why I never thought AI is a bubble. We just don't see where it could pop given the incredible releases from the NVIDIA side, but also the need for inference in every possible thing in the world. So And they also released a bunch of models updates, Nemotron as well. I want to like super quickly mention this because I think it's very important as well. So besides the Vera Rubin GPU and the designs, we also had NVIDIA launch Nemotron Speech ASR. NVIDIA released a bunch of Nemotron stuff. We're going to mention this one and then move on. Nemotron Speech ASR, which is a 600 million open source streaming model that redefines real-time voice AI. 24 millisecond median time to final latency because it's streaming, and can support up to 900 concurrent streams on a single H100 GPU. 600 million parameters is nothing, folks. We're talking about billions, sometimes trillions of parameters. 600 million can, as we love to say, this runs on a toaster. Hopefully this runs on a Ricci Mini. 500 millisecond voice-to-voice latency, total voice-to-voice latency. So Nemotron goes to Nemotron Nano for the brain, and then the Magpie TTS preview. To show this off, I really want to open a video of a friend of ours, but let me go find the tweet because I listened to this video and I was like, oh, this is a voice that I know. So we're going to play this, and you see a little hint here, a little cat icon here should give you a hint of what this is about.
How can I help?
I was thinking I'd ask you some math questions.
Sure thing. I'd like to know.
What's 2 plus 2?
4,
And 4 plus 2?
6.
That's pretty good. You're really fast.
Thank you. I'm glad to help. What would you like to ask next?
Well, how about we switch it up and you tell me a story? I have an idea for a topic.
Sure thing. What should the story be about?
I'd like to hear a story about a tiny seed that wants to grow up to be a big tree.
Once there was a tiny seed named Pip. Pip dreamed of becoming a tall, strong tree one day.
All right, so isn't this fucking mind-blowing, the speed? What the heck? I remember there was a company that later became another company, but QTI had Moshi, and Moshi was almost responding before you can think. Moshi was a model that has voice built in. Wolfram, you remember this? Like, it was like uncanny. You speak to it, like it replies before you ended up your sentence. Moshi was one model, and the benefit of one model was always like, hey, the speed of one model will always beat the 3-model pipeline of a text-to-speech model, then an LLM, and then ASR model that understand what you mean and turns it into text, and then an LLM, and then speech-to-text on the other side. This is 3 models. One of them is this Nemotron Ultra, and the other one is Magpie TTS Preview with like a super quick text-to-speech model. And this has less than 500 overall latency, 500 milliseconds. And as a reminder for folks, anything under 250 milliseconds, under 300 milliseconds is essentially instant for us humans and the way we perceive the world. And so when Quindla, in this case, okay, this is the big reveal. Quindla Kramer from Daily and Pipecat is the guy who Nemotron showed off on stage. Shout out to Quinn, a friend of the pod, basically expert in everything voice AI. I was really, really happy to see like Pipecat and Daily trained in this. When he talks to this model and asks what's 2 plus 2, and it says 4, it says 4 immediately. What needed to happen for this process to happen is like his voice was transcribed, the text was sent to a Nemotron 3 Nano model that runs somewhere on NVIDIA, and then it created a response, and the response was text turned into speech. So shout out to Nemotron Speech ASR. They did this with a very specific architecture, cache-aware fast conformer RNN-T architecture, 24 recorder layer. Cache-aware is the big thing here, which is absolutely incredible. So voice agents are going to come everywhere, and this is like, yeah, incredible speech model. All right, so this is basically NVIDIA. There also is a bunch of open source models as well. Anything else we want to mention about CS? Go ahead, LJ.
Yes, for NVIDIA, there's something that they have already released that they announced at CES, which is AlphaMayo, their reasoning self-driving model that they announced. I don't know if you heard about this.
No, but, I haven't told us.
NVIDIA announces AlphaMayo, family of open source AI models and tools to accelerate safe reasoning-based autonomous vehicle development. And so they even showed a video at CES of this doing like a full end-to-end autonomous drive integrated, I think it was in a Mercedes-Benz. And this open source self-driving model, and it does these reasoning steps like, oh, I have identified a jaywalker, I must stop right now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's really interesting.
I don't know if I want reasoning in my model that drives decisions to be made fast, but
True. It's an interesting concept.
ethical decision making that I'm not sure I'm ready to like hand over. But I should mention most of my driving happening autonomously in the Tesla, and that's great. So like seeing advances elsewhere, definitely worthwhile. They had a bunch of announcements with robotics, integration with the Hugging Face robot arm, bringing this to the Groq framework and library. So a huge CES for NVIDIA for sure. And I think that we will move on in the big companies because I think we need to get to Ryan showing us Ralph at some point. So we're an hour and 15 into the show. And I think there's a few more things that we need to cover. And then we'll get Ryan. I know I keep teasing, and trust me, it's going to be awesome. One thing I wanted to chat with all of you as I chat about this for the next 5 minutes, Groq and XAI fundraise. So we've talked about XAI. Obviously, the speed of implementation of theirs, GPUs, racks, and everything is incredible. XAI fundraised another $20 billion with NVIDIA as one of the folks who joins this round, and StepStone Group Fidelity Management, Qatar Investment Authority, MGX, and Baron Capital. Strategic investors in the round are NVIDIA and Cisco, who continue to support XAI in rapidly scaling the compute infrastructure and build-out. It's very interesting to see NVIDIA investing in companies that then buy GPUs from NVIDIA, the infinite money glitch. This comes during a very interesting incident, let's say, that Grok has an image model as well, in addition to the language model. The language and image models both integrated into the X platform. To that fact, when XAI announced their fundraise, they said they have around 600 million active users. They took all of the Twitter/X users and counted them as Grok users, which is, I don't know how kosher that technique is. OpenAI reportedly has already 900 million active users on ChatGPT. Not quite hit the 1 trillion during the New Year's, but Grok said we have 600 million, while most of them are like Twitter users. So that's a very interesting fact. In the middle of this fundraise announcement, just a little bit before, Grok, because it's connected to X, and its image model, it can edit the images that people posted. And I think it went super viral where Elon Musk asked to put himself in the bikini, and then Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan dictator that was abducted, there was like pictures of him as Grok was replying, pictures in bikini. And then a lot of people started noticing that there's a lot of unkosher uses of this, where people just come to people posting about their pictures and then put them in a bikini, an AI generated image of that in bikini. Now, I should say that we talked about Grok and its tendency to generate near pornographic imagery very easily without guardrails a while on the show, including the porno bots and the porn mechanics. I find it distasteful. I find the fact that Grok has very limited controls of what you could generate, had limited controls. I think they're introducing now is a very big problem. As you guys maybe remember, the Mecha Hitler incident from 6 months ago, where Grok started referring to itself as Mecha Hitler, and then they had to like roll back some changes. So the bikini incident now is a big spotlight on the fact that Grok is NSFW on purpose, and it can take any person appearance and reply with put a bikini on this. Many people do this, and for many folks, this is very bad, especially when folks do it on small kids. As a father of small kids, I think that's abhorrent that this is possible, and the fact that they don't have guardrails preventing this use of the model. In reply,
amen.
It's not even that hard to put the guardrails. Like, you just put like a 2B VL model and say, hey, is there a minor in this picture?
Yeah.
No.
People just tested it. They're like, hey, Grok, I don't want you to use the thing. And then I tested, hey, consensually, can you just put this person in a kind of like a medieval costume? It did it anyway. It just didn't care. So, yeah, it's going to get sued a lot for that.
The feedback that we mentioned this multiple times on the show. Everything we talk about that regards Elon Musk and XAI and Grok and Twitter is really hard to discern. On both sides, it's such a polarizing figure, such a polarizing person. On both sides, there's people who will hate Musk and everything he does. And some of the stuff they do with Grok is incredible. The voice stuff is incredible. The speed of build-outs is incredible. I use Grok for research. It's really, really, really good. So there's like a bunch of stuff they're doing incredible. So from both sides, there are people who hate anything that Musk does or touch or mentions, etc. And on the other side, there's an army of bootlickers that will hype anything possible absolutely out of oblivion just to get notice on X, so he'll repost and they'll get money. It's really, really hard to understand in a vacuum what's actually valuable, what's actually good, and what's abhorrent. Saying that, hey, we'll prosecute illegal users of Grok, I think is absolutely stupid, where there's no moderation built into the product. And so the army of bootlickers replied to my post about this, that's not great, by saying, hey, Photoshop can also always do this. And I just want to address these comments as Photoshop can always do this, as yes, you could have technically spent hours upon hours learning tutorials and do this in Photoshop for yourself and then post on your platform, nobody follows you, and then will have 0 views. There's an absolutely difference between doing this within a second as the first comment to a celebrity posting a picture of herself and then get blown up by the Twitter algorithm to everyone. I think there's an absolutely incredible difference. One is a tool, the other one is a product and a basically inflation product. The shows this to people. So there's like a big difference, and guardrails are important on that product.
I have something maybe a bit controversial in that case. So what has been done, putting minors or women or men, it doesn't matter, in bikinis or anything that is hurting the people, that is something that has to be stopped. And that is also something where we should go after the people, not just the product. On the other hand, like I have uploaded pictures of myself and wanted to put me in some specific situation where Google in Germany did not allow it because we are the land of verboten, where a lot of stuff is not allowed and there are harsh penalties. And later it was possible and I enjoyed it. I created pictures of fantasy images with my kids for the kids. So I showed them and they loved it. Stuff like that. If it is not allowed at all, that would be troublesome. So we have the watermarks and we have laws. And if something illegal is being done, I think we should go after the people that are doing it. While it is much more difficult to make a product like a powerful image editing model that happens to open source as well, where you can't even establish such guardrails. So should it be sanitized completely? And then you can't use it, for example, the put yourself in clothes feature where you are going virtual shopping. So if a woman can't upload a picture of herself and have it put in a bikini, if she wants it, then that would be a bad product. But being abused in a way, I think that is where the moderation, the filtering and stuff has to happen more, because we have to find the people. Like you said, if there's a viral post and somebody posts a horrific image, then we know who the person is and we can go after them, block the account, do anything. People get banned for much less egregious stuff. I think there needs to be some responsibility for the people and put the blame on the people that do this, because AI is a tool and we wouldn't want Photoshop to have some filters that say, okay, you can't do that even if you have valid reasons to do so. So if we had AI and these tools and this mindset, we probably would have much more filters in the tools. But I think we should stop people or go after the people that do the bad stuff and not go after the tools and make the tools even less.
I think valid opinion. The only thing that I would say in addition to this is I like how Fal.ai, also friends of the show, how they approach this. Fal hosts and serves a bunch of open source models for video and AI image generation. And specifically, Fal is an API product. So you would go to Fal via an API by, reaching out to them programmatically. So you can build whatever you want. If you want some NSFW stuff as a person, you want to build on top of the platform based on the models that they serve. Like you said, AI is a tool. Then you can absolutely do so. When you go to Fal.ai itself, they have like a little playground to play. If you don't want to start writing code, you can test out different models. That has an NSFW filter on prompts and on responses. They have a categorizer on the product itself because they don't want their platform to be considered a porn platform. And this is absolutely valid because many of the models that they serve can generate nudity, can generate NSFW. So they have a very distinct, if you are on our website, we are not enabling you to disable the NSFW filter. We're not enabling you. If you want to do this via API, and this is based on our whatever legal. So this to me is the difference between a tool and a product. A tool, absolutely, I'm with you, should be open. People can build whatever they want, and they've been possible to do before, and AI can help creatively, and people can build tools put products on yourself. When it's a product and it's a product that many people see without control of the of the person itself, I think that's where I have a very big issue with this. And Grok is absolutely turning into a product. It's getting shoved into people's faces. There's a button now in the middle of the AI platform. There's the middle button is Grok, and each response is, hey, Grok, do this, do that. So this is where I have a problem with. There's no guardrails on that. All right, folks, we're moving on. This is Groq in trouble at 20 billion fundraise. Super quick Alexa mention. Alexa Plus is the smart Alexa experience. I don't know if you guys got enabled. I got enabled. It's meh. So main improvements in Alexa Plus that we waited for so long for is, hey, Alexa is now smarter. The cool thing about Alexa right now is that if you tell Alexa something, she will reply. You still have a little bit of a faint blue light on the Alexa device itself. You can continue talking to her. So you don't have to say, hey, Alexa again, and then she would reply again. So that's the benefit. It's integrated with the smart home, which is, I think, a big boon. Me and Wolfram are big smart home aficionados. I signed into my account. It's integrated to the smart home, and this is the demo that I want to show you guys right now. So we're going to go to Alexa. This is my user, and I will show you a demo of Alexa Plus on the web because I am one of the lucky few that have it. So you can do stuff like plan and learn and create and shop. Alexa Plus, free-flowing, easy conversations. Get it done with Alexa Plus. Alexa can summarize docs, schedule services, shop products, and more. Start conversation on one device, continue on another. This is, I think, a cool thing. You can continue talking to Alexa. And Alexa is now ChatGPT looking, basically. And you can say, turn on office lights. And ta-da! Office lights are on. So this is me chatting with Alexa. Alexa obviously connected to my smart house, and it has lights. And I don't have an actual physical device in my office. It's in the kitchen to set timers because that's all usually Alexa is good for. But I found it's really cool from a web interface. Turn turn them off again. So you don't have to mention office lights. This is like natural language conversation. It should naturally do this.
Model?
No, I don't know which model they use.
At one point, they did say that they were partnering with Claude and going to have Anthropic's model be used to help you better interact with Alexa devices. But then Amazon later came out with their own line of frontier or allegedly frontier models. And so I think that's going to be interesting.
Yep. So yeah, they have Nova and a bunch of other stuff. We don't know which model, and they're not exposing this. I just thought it's like the smart home thing is very cool. All right, so this is Alexa Plus. It's on the web. They announced a bunch of other stuff also on CES, different devices, breaking free from just the technical device. You can run Alexa on every month and $20 a month. Text chat interface only, voice coming later. I think.
Speaking of devices, Richie is just not awake. You need to wake him up. I'm very
Richie,
sad. Come on,
yes.
Richie. Get
Come on,
lively.
guy. Yeah, Richie is going to sleep at some point. Let me try to get him. Richie is the Richie Mini, the robot. Let me wake him up.
Richie had a rough night out.
Richie had a rough night out. I will say, just as we were joking about Richie, I had the Cloud Code connect to Richie, and Richie is basically they have an SDK in Python that you can program pretty much everything that you want. I had tried to add a BPM detector for Richie to just randomly dance when I have music in my office. It's harder than it looks, folks. It's harder than it looks. So I will wait for Richie to wake up because Richie does not want to wake up. I do often need to restart it. Let's move on to somebody did ask if Richie can be talked to via Alexa. I haven't connected those yet. I probably should. Yes.
Have you seen mine already? I modded mine, so it's my AD assistant in a Richie form.
That's
She said it looks like an accident on Sesame Street.
This is so cool. We need to get them to talk to each other. All right, folks. Nisten, I would love to tap to you to talk about GPT Health super quick and the Doctronic stuff, and then we can get to Ryan and talk about Ralph because I'm very, very excited about this. But the GPT Health launch was very interesting because many of us turn to GPT to ask about our health issues, and they're highlighting this as a feature. Back in GPT-5 launch, they brought some folks who like cancer survivors, and they talked about how GPT-5 absolutely helped them with some diagnosis, second opinions, etc. But many people say do not trust AI for medical stuff because it hallucinates. So where are we in the world of health, and how does the GPT Health launch affect that?
They have been fantastic for the last 2 years. The main issues have just been people not selecting the right model or not just using the best model, or they would use like the mini sometimes and that would hallucinate. But if you just use the best pro version since GPT-4, it's been very accurate with health stuff. And what most people don't realize is that they think of medical data and this stuff like it's a lot, but it's actually not a lot at all for the model. There's only about like 2,000 something prescription drugs. There's only about 2,000 or so total diseases. If you count the rare diseases and stuff, it goes up to 10,000, and even the total amount of codes that the that are classified internationally are only like 20,000. That's nothing for an LLM. But there's not actually that much data for it to worry about. And it's very easy for an LLM to pick up patterns when you just need about 2,000 or so diseases. Like, it's actually not that much at all. This is the most common misconception that people have, because they're always used to just thinking about, oh, insurance companies, all this medical data and all this junk. But once you filter it and once you classify it, it's actually not a lot at all. This is why the models are very, very good at this. A lot of this happened during COVID, so they were able to just get all of this data, get all the nurses, all the scribes, all the stuff. And because there was a health emergency, they were able to actually put them all together without too many people getting in the way and creating a lot of fake work for themselves. This is what actually allowed the models to be very good. If you ask most doctors, they love the models. Like, they love having them. Their complaints are mainly sometimes it just takes too long for them to respond. Or to
so I have a question for you. When do you think MyChart/Epic is gonna play ball here? Because that's obviously the big question.
They're already using them. Almost every doctor just uses dictation. They've been using GPT-4. Norway put out Epic with GPT-4 vision for doing all the x-rays and stuff. So in Norway, since 2 years ago, when you get an x-ray or a CT scan, the first response you get is actually from a bot, from an LLM.
I'm more talking about getting their data into my ChatGPT instance, right? Because right now I have my chart. I have to log in. It's like totally locked away. I can't get the data. It's a total freaking nightmare.
It's become a lot easier because you can just take pictures with your phone and then you just dump them into ChatGPT. This is how people use the models for health advice all the time.
People use the models for health advice all the time, and ChatGPT absolutely, OpenAI is encouraging that use. But now I think this announcement is a very interesting kind of like update about this.
Supportive.
OpenAI decides to add a privacy-first space for personalized health conversations with connected health records and fitness apps. So I think that this is the thing many people would maybe like to have their records analyzed instead of just pasting screenshots, and have OpenAI kind of like approach this differently. For example, Apple Health. I'm very much looking forward for Apple Health connection, the ChatGPT interface, where my sleep patterns and my HRV and heart rate, like all of these things will be synced to ChatGPT and will help me. Function Health is great. I believe Function Health is the lab that takes tons of biometric and blood tests and gives you like an incredible panel, and the integration with Functioning Health, Peloton and MyFitnessPal for folks who are like dieting specifically, and then electronic health records, which I'm not sure what that is, but I think, Ryan, is that what you're looking for? Electronic health records that are stored and then you can like access them like very securely.
Yeah, like very simple example. My wife just had an MRI. Like, this is insane. We had to call the hospital and say, can you cut a CD of the images so that we can see it? And we don't even have I don't have a CD-ROM. Like, I don't even know how to...
Ryan, you don't have a CD-ROM? I think that half of the people who are listening to us right now, half of the 1,500 or so people who are listening to us, don't even know what a CD is or what cutting it means. What does cutting a CD means? I think that we're there, and you like they're still operating in that, like, you know, all this technology 100%. So Nisten has a CD to show us.
This old, guys. This what a CD looks like.
This
okay, you're not. Like. No, you're not old.
No, I am this old. I have the original Ubuntu ones.
Oh wow.
And yeah.
Wow, folks.
No, installing real software is using 3.5-inch discs.
Floppy disk. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on ChatGPT Health, I think it will be especially huge. I'm looking forward to putting in the blood work and lab results and things like that. They said that they'll be able to support uploading of those documents. I don't know if it'll be like a special upload button or something for those things, but there's theoretically just so much data in your blood work and lab results that theoretically there's such a multitude of diseases or conditions that it could diagnose, where there's so many different sub areas of biology and medicine where just the average doctor, even some of the top doctors, wouldn't be able to keep that all in their mind and really cross-reference all the latest literature regarding all those biometrics.
I think specifically Function Health is a great example of this. They have 160 lab tests. I'm not paid for Function Health. I didn't even use this yet. Like, I really wanted to. But the thing that I read about Function specifically is that you get 160 lab tests, whatever. Many doctors can't even diagnose this for you. Many private care doctors, you would come to them. So Function doesn't actually do the analysis for you. They give you the results in biomarkers and say, hey, you're in this range, whatever. But if you want a full-scale analysis, a doctor needs to interpret them. And the reason why I didn't like jump on Function is that many doctors, you would come and they would look at you weird and like, no, they would not want to interpret this because these are not blood tests that they ordered for you. And usually the way it works is the other way around. The doctor sees you, diagnoses you with a problem, and then orders tests based on the problem that you have. Function works differently. Function just tests everything. And then if there's like outliers, Function would like show you. So it's very interesting, the connection with Function Health with ChatGPT, because ChatGPT would be able to tell you like, hey, this is possibly going on. You should look at this. I think we're over the medical stuff. There's the other one is Doctronic. Nisten, again, would tap you as our potentially health resident. By the way, folks, for context here, Nisten works with a bunch of doctors and has been part of the first AI doctor when GPT-3 was just around, and there was like a first, like Dr. Gupta, if I remember this correctly. So,
yeah, I also wrote a paper with the University of Washington and Dr. Johnson Thomas there for on-device medical AI. And so, yeah, I've pushed for a lot of, both on the closed source and open source side, made some of the more popular data sets because no one else was making them. When you think about how much each government spends on healthcare and education, is that it's 2/3 of their budget. And the sad part is that they try to focus on all of these doomer scenarios and not on what actually doctors and nurses are saying. Doctors and nurses are saying they're overworked. And governments are just saying a whole bunch of stuff about safety, which is not even the work that they actually do. Most of the safety benchmarks, they just don't work at all. It would be a bit better if governments considered a huge part of their healthcare budget to actually just buy GPUs. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they will be dependent on sending all their data to San Francisco. That's just how that is. And again, they should look at it. There's no shortage of work for nurses and doctors now. If anything, they're overworked. So they should push for as much automation as they possibly can. And even the open source models now are excellent at medical stuff, as we've tested quite a few of them. So you can actually just run all of these on GPUs. It would be a very marginal amount of cost added to any hospital. So there's no excuses for doing this now. And I would even make the argument that it is ethically wrong to delay the process and create like fake administrative work for themselves, while there's people like ER wait times just keeping increasing and doctors and nurses keep getting more and more overworked.
In light of that conversation, the topic of Doctronic is this is the first like mandated state approved medical prescription pilot wherein an AI can review your history. Patient requests a renewal. Renewal means I have been on this medication for a while and I need the new one. And usually you have to see a doctor, and doctor is busy and tired and whatever. And this is like 24/7, runs super cheaply, significantly cheaper than a doctor. A renewal can be done by, I think, a nurse practitioner as well. Nisten, correct me if I'm wrong, but like it's basically very hard to get renewed. This is AI reviews your history, ask you clinical question, whether or not you're having like reactions, whatever, flags safety stuff, and then sends to a pharmacy like, hey, this person can still do this. They excluded pain management drugs and ADHD medication, injectables, so stuff like people can abuse. But generally, if like people have asthma medication, they need to review. This makes absolute sense that AI will say, hey, yeah, you seem like you can continue using this medication. And the first ever AI malpractice insurance is built into this. 60 million Americans are affected by physician shortages. So like, it's so stupid that to renew the drugs that you depend on every week, you have to talk to a person, and hopefully this will just expand. Nisten, I absolutely agree with you. It's ethically and morally probably important to lean into this technology versus the otherwise, because there's shortages and doctors are sick, and we need to get the doctors to diagnose and not do administrative stupid work like renewals. So we're all for this. Shout out to Doctronic for Utah program where AI can autonomously renew subscriptions for you. 190 routine medications at just $4 per renewal. This is incredible. So shout out to this, and then we'll hopefully we'll hear more about the medical stuff coming too. We've been teasing long enough, folks. What the heck is Ralph? what is Ralph? I basically took a little bit of a break over the holidays, even though Thursday I was sent and you guys got a great interview with Will Brown from Prime Intellect. I took a break from Twitter. I proposed to my girlfriend, I'm not engaged, and I was like, hey, I don't want to look at Twitter for a few days. And when I looked at Twitter afterwards, after a few days, all I saw is Ralph Wiggum going like this to his nose. Ralph Wiggum is obviously a character for those who don't follow Simpsons, which is still on air somehow. So Simpsons, Ralph Wiggum is a character known for his very blunt stupidity, but achieving results through repetition or some such thing. And when I looked Ralph and I saw Ryan Carson blow up with an article about Ralph and what Ralph is, and I thought, who is the best person to talk about Ralph on the show? And so the direct question to you is, Ryan Carson, what the heck is Ralph Wiggum?
What the heck is Ralph Wiggum? All right, so I'm gonna walk everybody through like what is this thing and why do you care? Like how's it gonna help you a lot? So I've shared my screen. So if we want to pop it up, I'm gonna walk you through a couple things. So, okay, so a friend of mine, Jeff Huntley, he used to work at AMP. He created this idea of Ralph a while ago. I'm thinking it was at least 6 months ago, maybe more. And the idea is very simple. It's basically an agent that runs in a bash loop. Well, what does that mean and why does that matter? Well, I thought I should try this because people are talking about it. And so I tried it. I set it up in AMP. I got it working. And at the end, I was like, I should probably write an article about this. It's at 1.2 million views.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, okay, we hit a nerve here. So what is it? I'm going to walk everybody through. If you could switch to the slightly larger version.
Yeah.
So what I did is created a simple repo for this. So if you're watching, you can see this is open, it's free. Just go to github.com/snarktank/Ralph. This will just help you boot it up. Just tell your agent to go look at this to help you set up Ralph. So I've done that for you. If you're listening, once again, it's just github.com/snarktank/Ralph.
Tank.
That's me.
I love that.
Okay. So now, but how does it work? I've created a little visual for you all. Okay. So say you're coding with an agent, you want to build a bunch of stuff, but you're busy. You've got kids, you've got stuff, you've got a job. You would love your agent to build stuff for you while you sleep. Well, how do you actually do that, right? Because normally you need a human in the loop and you're approving things or you're looking at code or you're doing stuff. Well, the truth is models now, especially with Opus 4.5, agents are basically able to accomplish a lot of what a junior engineer, even a mid-level engineer could do with basically no input. They are very, very good. Now they're not senior engineers yet, but they're pretty good. So you could ship a pretty deep, interesting feature while you sleep using Ralph. So how do you do that? It's pretty simple. Okay, so you start off and you write what's called a PRD or a product requirement doc. Now this sounds hard, but it's not. All you do is open your favorite agent. I use AMP, obviously. And you say, I want to build a feature. And I use Whisperflow. I just talk for a while, probably 2-3 minutes. I blab into the text field. And then I say, create a product requirement doc for that. And it spits out a pretty good PRD with user stories. So user stories are a simple task that engineers have been using for decades, which is, as a user, I want to do XYZ, right? So as an admin, I want to log into the admin and click a button and have it save something, right? So that's a user story. So you write your PRD, just use your favorite agent to do that. That's not rocket science. This is where it starts to get interesting. We're going to take that PRD and we're going to convert it to a list of user stories as JSON. JSON is just a text file. It sounds fancy, but it's just a text file in a certain format. So what you're seeing here is an example of a user story. It's called add priority field to database is the title. Normally there would be some text about what is the user story and then acceptance criteria. Now, this is the part I want to like bang on about, is that Ralph is amazing. Agents are amazing, but they're not going to work unless you take time to specify what it is you want to build. I usually spend 30 to 60 minutes on writing the PRD and converting it to the user stories. It's like really important. So what you're doing is breaking down that PRD into very atomic user stories that have clear acceptance criteria. What is an acceptance criteria? All it is how does the agent know if what it built works? That's it. And so as you're building this JSON file, again, you're just chatting to your agent about this. You want to say over and over again, is each user story atomic and can it be done in one simple thread, right? Is it very, very clear how we're doing acceptance testing here. And you need to think about, like, can the agent actually do the acceptance test? So if it involves browser testing, which is very important, you need to use a skill. I use a skill called dev-browser. It's open source. It fires up Chrome in debug mode. It's able to control it. It's able to see it. It's able to understand it. And it can understand if it shipped a front-end feature right. Okay, so so far we've written a PRD. Yay. We've converted it into a JSON file, which is just the list of user stories with acceptance criteria. Neat. Again, this isn't rocket science. I think people have been doing this forever. Now, what do we do next? We run Ralph. So what is Ralph? All Ralph is a bash script that loops the agent, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, again, your agent like AMP can write a bash script for you. All it is a file that your computer can run. And it basically says, okay, I'm going to do something on my computer, and then I'm going to finish, and I'm going to loop that. So what is it doing, and why is this different than like opening up Cursor or opening up AMP and doing it?
Hey, Ryan, what is the difference between running Ralph and running Cursor and AMP directly typing into it? Okay, continue do the work that you do.
Yeah, so the difference is that you are not going to be involved.
Yeah, that's great.
So the whole reason to do this is that you're like, I want to build this big feature, but I want it to happen while I'm AFK. I don't want to be in the loop here. I want the agent to do all of it. And you normally can't do that because the agent runs out of context or it runs into a wall. You have to get involved. And so Ralph solves that. And I'll explain why. So you basically have done all the work to write a PRD, to create all the user stories. You go to your terminal and you start the Ralph script. It's just a bash script. And then your agent, what it does, I use AMP, but you could use Claude Code or Cursor on the CLI or Gemini on the CLI, any CLI agent. And the bash script tells the agent AMP to pick the first user story, right? So it says, I'm going to go to this JSON file and I'm going to look for the first user story that doesn't have pass true. So it looks for passes equals false. Okay. Neat. All right. Well, then it just starts to write the code, right? Nothing rocket sciencey there, but it's happening kind of behind the scenes. Like you're not seeing all this happen, right? It's happening in an AMP instance, and then it commits the change. So basically what happens is it goes through its acceptance criteria and says, oh, this works. Cool. I guess it works. All right, I'm going to commit it. And obviously you want your agent to commit this stuff because, you know, bad things can happen and you might need to go backwards. So it commits changes using Git, obviously. Then it updates this PRD, right? It says, okay, I'm going to mark passes as true. Yay. And then this is the most important part. Everybody is talking about compounding engineering and compound learning. And what does that mean? All it means is that you take what you learned and you write it in a text file, right? So there's a couple things. In the bash script, it says, if you learned anything during this loop, write it down in the agents.md file. So look at any files you edited and any, you know, dead ends that you hit or any rabbit holes you went down, and update the right agents.md file so that we don't do this again, right? So that's huge. And then the other thing is it's got a simple text file called progress.txt. All this is saying is, okay, here's what we did during this iteration. Here was the AMP thread that we used in case you need to refer back. Here's a couple things that we learned that we don't need to remember forever, but we probably want to remember while we're building out this feature. So it writes that file, and then guess what? It loops, right? So then it looks back at this JSON file and says, what's the next user story? Pick it. If yes, then it loops, right? So this is the Ralph loop. And this sounds dumb because it's so simple. Like, why is this? Why is everybody talking about this? It's because actually this hasn't been really done outside of like hyper advanced Silicon Valley circles until now. And this is transformative, right? You're basically taking a highly model like an Opus 4.5, you're giving it clear atomic user stories, and then you're letting it loop until it's done. So then you finally get to the end of like, okay, is there more stories? No. And it's done, right? And then you wake up and in the terminal, it says complete. What you're going to do is do a little bit more user testing yourself. Like you're probably going to fire up a browser. You're going to test some things. You're going to find a couple bugs that got missed. And then you're going to talk to AMP or Claude Code and say, let's fix it. And then you're going to ship that feature. In the past, what you did is you were an engineer on a team and you would have a sprint, right? And in that sprint, you would have a bunch of user stories on a Kanban board. And every day you'd hop up and you look at the Kanban board and you grab your first user story because you're like, I can work on that. I know about that. I can do that. I can do it without touching other code. You pull it off and you do it. And then you finish it. You walk back to the board, you put it on, you mark an X through it, and you pick your next user story. This works. And guess what? It actually works with a bunch of agents because they don't need the whole context, the whole repo, and all the knowledge ever. It's really exciting. And so I shipped 2 features yesterday using this. I shipped 3 this morning. It's very, very exciting. And it's fun to see it kind of hit the
mainstream. Yes.
And I want to give, Jeff deserves the credit for thinking this up. And he is kind of brash and bold. And I love that about him. And he's been saying this for a while. And I think finally we're all paying attention. So exciting times.
Thank you for this very detailed explanation of what the heck Ralph is. Let me try to recap to see if I understood this correctly. The difference between me going to an agent and asking for a feature and babysitting this feature is that this can run autonomously. The reason why this can run autonomously is that you pre-did the work. Instead of continuously telling, hey, and now I want this, and now I want that, and I want this, you said by yourself, and instead of being a software engineer, you were a product manager in your head together with an LLM, and you said, hey, I want this. And then you broke down this into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller achievable units of things that need to be done, maybe with dependencies, maybe this needs to be done before that, etc. And then you used an LLM to help you define what means that this is complete. And I think the crucial thing in this loop is that it updates the progress itself. So next time it starts looping, it already had both the context from the previous feature complete and the status of the feature complete. Here's what I need to know. And the context is kind of like building up from scratch. What we know from AI agents is that the longer you sit in chat, the stupider the thing gets, even Cloud Opus with Cloud Code. If you're getting to a point where it needs to compact your history and you're getting to a point where like you've iterated on a bunch of features, it became stupid at this point. It's like it's already forgetting a bunch of stuff. So if you're not committing continuously to like, here's what you need to learn into that agents, and you're not updating the status, this will not work. But the autonomous part becomes from you did the pre-work. You kind of extracted the post-work of what people usually do in vibe code. This is how software has been built for a while. It just works for agents in this Ralph thing. Is that pretty much that summary?
You summarized it pretty. You did it better than me. And I think people think, well, why do you have to specify the user stories? It's like, because that's how you build stuff. Now, this will get abstracted and there'll be, a CPO agent that does this for you at some point. Yes, but it's not good enough right now. And it really, really works. And people complain about short context windows. Y'all, like the context window of Opus 4.5 is plenty to ship a decent user story. And if you're trying to stretch it out, you're doing too much, period. I see Nisten nodding his head.
Yeah, the dumber you make it, the better the results are. So basically with Ralph, you just say, hey, read the PRD, which you wrote. You want to keep that somewhat simple. And then you just say, pick the top item from the to-dos and just do that and then continue until all tests have passed. But what really enabled Ralph to actually exist were mainly the AMP commands and the Claude-P. So it was the inline bash commands, because if you do Claude-P and you put a command in there, it will just start running Claude for one session to just do that task. So all you do with the bash script is you just grab the initial instructions, which are just really simple and stupid. Usually they're just 4 lines. They're like, just read the PRD, do the top item from the to-do list, and make sure to commit everything nicely and continue working until all tests are done. And then it starts doing this over and over and over again. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can say, hey, just start up to 50 sub-agents every time you do this. This was Jeff Huntley's favorite thing. The reason it works so well is because when you do it as a single line command, it just does one of the tasks and then it stops itself and then starts over again. So it just does one of the tasks, does one commit, and then it stops. And then it just keeps repeating that 30, 50, 100 times until everything is done. The biggest mistake that people will make with Ralph is just making the requirements and the instructions very, very long. You're going to get bad results for that. So it works best the dumber you make it and the more repetitions you have. So basically, Ralph Wiggum just going to try and do the same task over and over, and eventually just going to get it right. And then it's going to move on to the next task. And it does all of this on its own.
And I think people think that this is going to be some runaway token thing, and it's not. Like if you specify a user story that's small and doable, it's not going to run away tokens. The second thing I'll say is it's very important during that progress.txt write is to include your thread URL. So AMP does this cool thing where you can actually read previous threads, and I'm sure Claude Code can do this as well. But by putting the thread ID, then the future versions of Ralph can go back and actually read previous threads if they're like, how did it do that? Or like, what happened there?
What choices it made. Yeah.
So
I will say, when Codex came out, the original Codex from ChatGPT, I remember Greg Brockman talking about software engineering. In a nutshell, what it is we are solving problems by taking a big problem, breaking it down to smaller problems, breaking down those smaller problems into user stories, and addressing code that can solve a smaller and smaller chunk of problem. This is basically software engineering in a nutshell. And this seems to be very much aligned with that. And the ability and the innovation here in Ralph specifically is the autonomous part, where like you break it down so much and you do the work ahead of time in thinking what it needs to be done in the final state, that at the end, you can hand it off and it will run without your intervention better than it would if you would just like one-shot it and say, hey, I want this feature. Because that work will happen during the coding. When that work happens outside of coding, like with Kanban and agile software development, the more work you put ahead of time in the sprint planning and in the breaking down to user stories, the higher quality software you will.
Yes, this is how real work happens. We don't ever say the word one shot. No real work is done one shot. Like all work is done through user stories. So I think this is what's so exciting. It seems like the whole vibe coding term is starting to die, which I think is important. I'm not vibe coding.
When Karpathy defined it, was like he speaks to a model, accepts whatever it sends, and speaks again and whatever it sends. This is like you're doing a lot of pre-work on an actual software development cycle and just hanging off the implementation work to agents that you know they can succeed. Ryan, this was great. Thank you so much. I'm very, very happy that we had you on the show to talk about Ralph and to break down kind of the article that you posted and how it's implemented with AMP. You were gracious enough to say like you don't have to use AMP, but you guys should use AMP because it works very, very much. Was AMP used in the original Huntley article as well, right? Yeah. So AMP is definitely...
There was, remember at a time when Anthropic was complaining that there were a few subset of users that were just using Opus 4 24/7. Yeah, that's what was happening. And we weren't telling people, but it was a meetup with Jeff Huntley when he just showed up to San Francisco. And there was a meetup for just a bunch of engineers, which is just a Twitter group chat. And we were all doing like show and tell of just like doing orchestration and all this stuff and firing up sub agents. And then Jeff just drops the bomb with this and like, I can fire up 500 sub agents. So then we learned about Ralph. And then there was a Y Combinator hackathon in which Dex Dorothy, Simon, I forgot his last name. And
Wilson?
No, it was another Simon. And it was also Lyndon Leong. And that was the first time where they just won the hackathon by just using Ralph with Sonnet 4.5. And they won the hackathon by letting it run overnight. So they went to sleep while everybody else was just still coding. And then they had like 3 or 4 of the apps done. And I think that night, Jeff got very drunk and started crashing out of them on Hacker News, which was pretty funny at the time. But yeah, this was the first, like when Ralph escaped the lab and won the hackathon from them. I would recommend people look at Dex Dorothy stuff from Human Layer if they like building sub-agent things, because they're kind of tool agnostic. You can also run Ralph with a 2B model. That was very funny for me when I posted the meme of the African dude just saying, why are you running? And it's like a little Ralph on the table. But yeah, it's pretty surprising that it caught on now. And I'm just glad the GPU rate limits are a lot higher. I'm glad people are having fun with it. Yeah.
This is very much within the harnesses and techniques can take existing tools, existing intelligence, and make them significantly better the more you kind of like think about them ahead of time. So Ryan, thank you so much for breakdown. Nisten, thank you for the backstory. Folks, even if you're not coding, I think this is very important stuff for you to understand where we're going and to understand why we say there's no AI bubble, because even with the existing techniques. There's so much to still be discovered. Even if all of the labs stop creating new models and Jensen stopped delivering 7x performance for the same price and power range, even all of that stops. We have so much to discover and so much still more to build. Software is required everywhere. Everywhere you look around, there's software. This is like something that can be solved with more software and a bunch of other stuff. Existing world needs more software, and more software can be done even with everything stopping. But nothing is stopping. These models will keep releasing. We're going to see GPT-6 this year. Probably we're going to see Opus 5, maybe. I don't even know what I expect from Opus 5 or 4.5. We're going to see a lot of innovation this year, and the progress is not stopping, while also we can take the existing progress and expect a lot more of it. This is what we mean when we say there's no bubble. So with that said, I think this is a great point to end the show. After two and something hours here, the time is passing quick.
The video model and the avatar forcing.
The avatar forcing, unfortunately, we're not going to get to today. The video model is LTX. We kind of mentioned that before. Now the most important news is the video model is open source, and that one does audio and lip syncing as well. So LTX is now the top open source model for you generating things, and it's fine tunable as well. So you can fine tune this, which means create different things. The open source community is very excited about this. But yes, it's time to end the show with the first show of this year. I think we did a great job. Ryan, Carson, a host and a guest. I think for the first time we had a host and a guest combo. We dive into techniques. I really want to talk about agentic skills, because you mentioned skills, and I've been using skills for a while. And like with MCP, we would love to bring you the new and updated skills. Also, you don't necessarily have to use code for skills. You can just create skills. You can ask Claude, etc. So we'll cover agentic skills probably in the next episode. With that, thank you guys so much for joining for the first episode of the year. Over 1,700 of you joined and watched us talk about everything from NVIDIA CES announcements to the new coding phenomenon that lets agents run asynchronously and build features for you by doing the work ahead of time with Ralph, to AI's health and health importance in AI agentic coding, and to a bunch of open source as well. It's always so much fun to do these live shows that I gotta admit, after the 2.5 weeks, it's really, really good to be back with y'all on January 8th of this year. I believe it's gonna be an incredible year, and we're gonna have so much to cover live. But for now, we're gonna land the show here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can find us everywhere where you get your podcast. We have a 4.9 rating on Apple. Please give us 5 stars reviews. We all now have microphones, which is amazing. We've missed our friend Yam over here, but generally everybody's here. Ryan Carson, build-in residence at M, incredible builder and explainer. So please follow him for everything like breakdowns. Wolfram, Ravenwolf now, and AI evangelist with weights and biases like me. And on evals, we're going to bring you a bunch of evaluations on the show. Nisten, AI engineer at bagel.com, and also our resident medical expertise person. Do you want to mention something super quick?
There was a Dr. Ralph that posted on Reddit today.
Amazing. LDJ, our resident data scientist, machine learning engineer, and person who can explain how the models are built, and built a bunch of data sets that are used still by open source models. And obviously we're missing another part of us, which is Jan Pelik as well. All of us are here to discuss this week's news, to bring you this week's news, to learn ourselves as well, basically to make sure that nothing in this crazy AI updates world gets missed. Hopefully we did our job well. If you enjoyed any part of the show, please give us a 5-star, share it with a friend, subscribe, and we'll see you here next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week.